Hello! Today I'm talking about the bindings for IUP, for the Go programming language. So these are by Gen2Brain. You see it here on the left side, IUP Go. Now, IUP is a framework that used to be it's developed for C, it's developed by some Brazilian company, I think, in Rio de Janeiro. And it's been around for a long time, as long as GTK and TK. Now, it always has been the kind of smaller framework for fast solutions that didn't have the platform-native look and feel, but it's quite evolved by now, and it's quite usable for Go if you use these bindings. Before these bindings that were published about 2 years ago, there were other bindings, but they were very outdated, and it was always hard to even get IUP and install it. The right library for C was hard to find. There's also a Lua port, but you also have to find it first and then find the right version. And you can use IUP in Lua, but the IUP bindings for Go are quite recent. Now, they work for all the desktop platforms. So they work on Windows, macOS, and Linux, but no mobile support because IUP does generally not have mobile support. Here's how they look. They have all the common user interface elements. And let me show you one of the examples, basically the one that you see in the screenshot. If we run that, go run, sample, go, we should get the generic demo. As always, the first compilation takes a long time because it has to compile some C, but this was already compiled, so it was fast. So afterwards, it's going to be fast. So you can see here the common user interface elements. This canvas, for some reason, does not paint anything. That's a bit odd. You have tabs, you have progress bars, some sliders, some lists with embedded small icons. So it's a bit 90s-like, I would say, the look and feel here on my machine, but that's because it uses GTK under the hood, or at least it uses my theme, and that's a light theme on my Linux distro. So you have different theming for the platform, and it selects an appropriate one or relatively appropriate one for the platform. So here that would be Darwin for macOS. Well, that might not look exactly as what you expect nowadays, but it's close enough. It's fairly close. You have different Linux themes. This is always the original Motif theming. You saw maybe the same on the TK page. So Motif, I don't know, it's still around. It's for X11, but that looks very outdated. That's basically what you got in the 90s. How does it look on Windows? Almost the same, a little bit more modern. Okay, so let's look at the code quickly. How does this look? So you open the framework, you close it, you set some handles, and you can see here already, you have handles that are strings, you have attributes that are strings, you have menus, set the values as strings, and so on. And so that brings me to the first disadvantage of this framework. I've used this for a small project, a medium-sized project, and one disadvantage is that all of these attributes are strings, and you have to convert numbers, colors, and whatnot to these kind of strings and back and forth. So there's a lot of conversion to strings, and also it's very cumbersome, and it's of course not very Go-like. So forget about strong typing here. The API of IUP is basically string-based. It's the same for the C. So that's a bit odd when you use it, and it has performance penalties. If you want to do graphics, you can, draw rectangles and so on. So you can draw some basic graphics, but it's not going to be very fast, so probably not suitable for games, for instance. Now, that's the first big issue I found. There is another issue that you cannot see in a demo like that, but I've encountered it. So normally these kind of frameworks, as you probably know, need to be run in the operating system main thread. So when the Go program starts, It's usually started in one main thread, and the Go routine needs to be locked to this main thread. There is a runtime method for that. And you have to run everything in that Go routine. If you spawn other Go routines, they might be scheduled on another OS thread, and so they need to call this Go routine that is locked to the OS thread, or you get some problems. All frameworks have this somehow, and they have different mechanisms for dealing with that. But this one is the most finicky with that respect. So it's just crazy when you make one mistake of calling an IUP routine or setting an attribute or even getting an attribute outside of the main OS thread, it's going to crash. That's rather bad, I think. And it's also very uncommon. I don't know what under the hood causes this behavior. Other than that, it's a very nice framework. It's very easy to use, very straightforward. You have all the common user interface elements, and it's nice to quickly build something. Now, bottom line, would I use this again? I think I wouldn't use it again today if I start a new project, because I think TK and the SIGO free bindings of TK I talked about in the last video are available now, and it can do anything that IUP can do. It's also not faster, but it's also not harder to use. You have there another problem that all these options are the empty interface, values of the empty interface, so it's not type safer. But you know, whether it's strings that could be wrong or the empty interface that panics somehow, it doesn't make a huge difference. So I would probably use TK now because it's SIGO free, or one of the larger ones like GTK4. When this was released, I think GTK4 bindings that are auto-generated weren't available yet. Or I would even use Qt, since these MIT licensed Qt bindings also weren't available when this was released. So by now, I think you can use it for smaller projects and check it out. But be aware that the API is basically string-based, and you will have to convert color values to strings, which is kind of tricky if you know how complicated colors are. So these kind of conversions you have to implement, and then you have to set them. There are some helper functions in these bindings, but they are not complete. Another thing to watch out for, to be aware of, the text editor is quite powerful. You can change, I think, the font. I mean, you can change the global font for sure. I think you can even change the font in text editors, but I would have to look that up. But you can also set the background color, the foreground color, but it's a bit slow. So I implemented syntax coloring for this, and that was too slow because you have to set the selection and you have to apply this to the selection. So you don't have a tag system like TK has. And the problem with that is you have to kind of go through the document based on the selection, change the selection, and that's all very slow. So it's not suitable for live syntax coloring, I would say. There is an add-on for that, a binding to the Scintilla editor, right? It's a widget that is available for many different languages. I think it's written in C, so there are many bindings for that. But unfortunately, it's not available in these bindings. There are a few other things that the author of these bindings hasn't made available. Why not? Well, of course, he was asked. The reason is very simple. He doesn't want to pull in so many dependencies, and I can understand that, because some of these dependencies for graphics, for instance, are very heavy. So it would be very fragile to pull them all in. So that means it's not all you get when you use IUP in C. There's a few extensions that are not available. And if you want to program an editor, for instance, you cannot use IUP, I would say. All right. But other than that, it's a great framework and it's suitable for small projects, I would say. If you like it, check it out. And that's it for today. See you next time when I talk about another framework, this time probably one that is a Go native again. Okay, see you. Bye.